Tonight I'll be speaking about influence, okay? And what influence you are under, and whatever influence you are under is what you're going to put out, okay? Whatever influence you're under, so here's the influence, right? You are under it. Whatever you are under is what you're going to act out, is what is going to come out of you. So if God is your influence, you should be putting out godly influence, okay? If your influence is the world, what are you going to be putting out? A worldly influence, okay? And influence is interesting because a lot of times it's not really something you control. It's not something that you you do it yourself, you make it up. It kind of just happens, okay? And the thing about influence is it is the capacity to have an effect on someone's character, development, or behavior without directly forcing those people to change. So what influence does is it doesn't force you to do anything, but you do it without being forced to do it. You just do it, right? And when we think of even Jesus in the Bible, when he would call his disciples, then call them out, hey, come follow me, he never forced anybody to follow him, ever. Okay? He never pressured anyone to follow him. As a matter of fact, the ones who'd follow him, he'd say, are you sure you want to follow me? It was almost as if he didn't want them to. But every time he called them, would you want to follow me? And they're like, Jesus didn't sit there trying to convince them, okay, guys, look, there's a retirement package. We've got a 20-year retirement. You keep it. He didn't say any of that. He said, do you want to follow me? That's it. Yes or no. He didn't pressure them. He didn't force them to do anything. And some said yes and some said no. But the ones that said yes, Jesus would put this influence on them without forcing them to do anything. But they said, this is something that I want to do. There's a change here I want to occur in me. That this is something that my spirit is longing for, and I'm going to go act on that. And whatever influence you are under is what you are going to put out. And even us, especially under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and all those things, we do things we wouldn't do if we were not under that certain influence. Okay? And when you're under the influence of alcohol, per se, you're doing all these things that you wouldn't do if you weren't drunk. When you're under the influence of drugs or whatever narcotics you're under, you're doing things you wouldn't do if you were not on the drugs. Because now you're under that influence, and that influence is now telling you what to do, and you just succumb to it. You just do whatever it tells you to do. That influence now is in your blood, and so now that's flowing through you, and that's what you're going to put out, whatever cocaine wants you to do, for example. Okay? I went extreme, all right? All that hard stuff. You put that stuff in your blood, now it's running through your system, now it's going to tell you what to do. Now it's telling your heart what to do, it's telling your mind what to do, because now you are under its influence. And whatever you identify yourself by are the influences that you are going to seek out. So if you identify yourself as by your flesh, and what does the flesh want? Whatever the world desires, whatever my flesh wants to do, whatever I want to do, whatever it is. So now you are under the influence now of your flesh. And since you identify yourself by that, you are looking for things that will feed your flesh. You are looking for those worldly influences to continue to feed your worldly identity that you identify yourself by. That's why when God changes your identity, now the influences you're pursuing are not the same anymore. You're not pursuing, certain music. You're not pursuing certain movies. You're not pursuing certain environments anymore because God's influence is now in your life. And so now you're pursuing those things that match the one that you're under and the one that is influencing you. Okay? And especially in this world, we're heavily influenced by movies, music, people. They want to tell you what to think. Especially the news. They want to tell you what to think. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you because they want you to think a certain way. Okay? And that's why you have to have discernment. You have to be in the Spirit. You have to pray to say, God, what do you think of it? Lord, what do you think of this? And the thing about influences is it could be positive or it can be negative. And I also want you to think about what influence do you put out to people and what do you cast out on other people through your influence? What effect do you have on other people? What kind of influence do you have on other people, especially as a believer? When someone has a certain encounter with you, what are they leaving with? What is it that they are getting from you? What is it that you are putting out to this other person? What are you influencing them to do? Because you know how sometimes you've had some friends, you're like, yo, you're a bad influence. I can't be around you. But you stay around them anyway, but you're like, you're a bad influence. I can't be with you or any of that stuff. We do that. Why? Because it's much easier to inherit a negative influence than positive. Because sometimes you're trying to seek this positive influence. You're trying to seek the Lord. You're trying to do these things, but you keep hanging around negativity. You keep hanging around people that are not pursuing those things. And I'm not telling you not to hang out with people like that, but you cannot do what they're doing. Jesus hung out with sinners. He didn't do what the sinners were doing. And now we're going to this thing where it's like, hey, I'm hanging out with sinners, but I'm also going to like do what they're doing because I got to call them back to the Lord. Like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Jesus still held his ground even being among sinners. He didn't do exactly what they were doing because he's like, look, you're not going to influence me. I'm here to influence you. Okay? And what does the word say? You can go in with the best intentions ever, but if you're around that negativity, your best intentions are going to be drowned out. It's not going to function. A lot of you can testify to that, especially when you were kind of new to the Lord. You're trying to navigate this relationship with the Lord, but your friends aren't, and so you're just stuck in this place of like, what do I do? I'm not sure. Now, I'm going to be talking about a relationship here in the Bible between Elisha and Elijah. I said it right. Okay, they're two different people. Okay, and you're Elisha, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so Elijah had a very strong influence over Elisha. Okay, and we're gonna get into that right now. So it says we're picking up now where Elijah has already destroyed all the prophets and all those things of Jezebel and all that. The thing that happened on the mountain where God collected the sacrifice, and then the god of Baal did it and all those things. So he basically proved like, hey, my God is real and yours isn't. Okay. Then he ran away, when Jezebel said, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, yeah, I got to run away. Even though I just did all these things, and the Lord's fire came down, but Jezebel made a threat and I'm running away. I'm scared. All right. So this is where God found him in the cave and all those things. And he gave him instructions. And he said, hey, you're going to go you're going to go find Elisha, all right? And you're going to go pretty much anoint him, okay, as another prophet, all right? And it says, when we pick up in 19, Elijah left there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, as he was plowing. I like how he found him. He found him working. He found him plowing. When you actually read through the word, when it came to Moses, everybody that God called, they were doing something. The disciples were fishing, right? Or at least the apostles, they were fishing. Matthew was doing his tax collector stuff. Everybody was working. And it was while they were working when Jesus came by and said, hey, come follow me. Hey, come do this. Hey, come do that, right? Because not only that, he was calling them to purpose. He was calling them to himself. And so he knows, I can't have lazy people. It's okay to be a believer and all those things. There's nothing wrong with that. But when God is calling you to, okay, you're now going from believer to let's walk in the calling and walk in the purpose that you have in the kingdom of God, you can't be lazy. Guys, imagine if I was lazy in certain aspects. I'm lazy in other things, but y'all know how I am with the kingdom. Imagine if I was lazy about it. Y'all would be like, yo, this pastor, bro, like, you don't want to do nothing. Y'all might think that sometimes, I don't know, but you don't want to do anything. You don't want to get in ears. You don't want to do nothing. He's like, oh, it's fine, whatever. He's all whatever about everything. All right, I'm done talking about myself. But anyway, he calls people when they're working. The thing is, he called him when he was plowing. And what do we learn about plowing? Plowing is when you're preparing the field to receive something new. Elisha in this moment had no idea that, yeah, he's plowing the ground, but he was actually plowing himself. That God was actually plowing him to receive something new. for Elijah to start planting in Elisha for what is to come. And so it says 12 teams of oxen were in front of him, and he was with the 12th team. Elijah walked by him and threw his mantle over him. Okay? So he was walking by, right? And, Evan so happened to be here, walking by, just throws his mantle on him, and Elisha knew what time it was. Because he knew, he might have not known Elijah personally. He might have not known him. He might have heard of him. We don't know. But what he did know is he recognized that mantle. And he knows what that mantle meant. Yo, here comes this man. Oh, he's got the mantle. Oh, he's putting it on me. Oh, I know what this means. I know what this means. God is calling me. So Elisha left the oxen and ran to follow Elijah. Immediately, he dropped everything. So imagine him. He's plowing. He's doing his thing with the oxen. Elijah throws the mantle on. He said, I'm done. I'm out. I'm out of here. I'm gone. Okay? He did not think twice. When God called him, he didn't think twice about it. He said, I am going. I am doing it. I am leaving. He didn't think about what I'm leaving behind. He said, I am out. This is more important. And so what it continues to say is, he says, hold on a second. Please let me kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow you. So he goes, wait, hold on. I can't leave things the way they are right now. Okay? Let me clean some things up first. And then he says, go on back, he replied, for what have I done to you? Elijah's saying, look, I'm not doing this because I chose you. I'm doing this because God chose you. I didn't pick you. God picked you. So yeah, you can go on back, but at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you're going to answer the call of the Lord or not. When I'm pushing you, when you have the people in their life that are pushing you in the Lord and challenge you in the Lord, it's not because we picked you. It's because God picked you. It's because God chose you. So I'm going to pour in. I'm going to try as much as I can. But it also depends on how much are you allowing the influence that God has put in your life. How much of the influence are you allowing in your life that God has put in your life? Because he's also put people around you to receive from. How much are you letting them in? So he turned back from following him, took the team of oxen and slaughtered them with the oxen's wooden yoke and plow. He destroyed everything. Everything. He cooked the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he left, followed Elijah, and served him. Notice what Elisha did here. He destroyed his livelihood because he knew, I'm not coming back. He knew it. And if I don't come back, who's going to take care of my oxen? He's like, you know what? I'll just get rid of it. So I don't got to worry about it. Because that's another thing. I don't even want to leave room for me to even come back to this. Because as he's following Elijah, he wants to make sure, hold on, let me destroy what I might be tempted to go back to when times get rough. He literally burned it, killed it, everything, gone. He destroyed the yoke, gone. And not only that, then he fed it to the whole village, right? What does it say? He said, cook the meat and gave it to the people. They ate. So basically, it's like someone selling their business and then just dispersing the proceeds among his people, basically. That's what he did. He knew there's no coming back from this. And if we actually went in with that mentality of when God is calling us with, there is no coming back from this. If we actually destroyed the idolatry in our lives to make sure, even if I get tempted, it'll be gone anyway, so if I want to go back, it won't be there. There will be nothing for me to go back to. Which is actually what Peter said. When Jesus told Peter, Peter, you can go too. If this offended you, you can leave. But Peter said, if I leave, I have nothing to go back to. I've left it all. It's gone. So the first thing under Elijah's influence that Elisha learned right here, right, just from Elijah showing up, had such a strong influence over his life, right, that he immediately left everything and said, I'm going to go follow you. Pretty much a precursor to what Jesus was going to do. Okay? He said, hey, come follow me. He said, okay, I'll leave it all and I will follow you. He learned how to serve. Because what does it say after this? He served Elijah. He served him. He didn't just follow him. He served him. He learned from him. You need to learn, I'm going to say, you need to learn how to serve before you can receive a mantle. Because at the end of all this, yes, Elisha received the mantle, but he learned how to serve first. And a lot of people try to skip that part. They're like, I want the TikTok influence. I want the Facebook influence. I want the Instagram influence of the Lord. But I don't want to serve. They become Christian. And then 2 days later, they're over here preaching the gospel. And it's like, you haven't been tested. Who are you serving under? Before you even reach that point, you have to learn how to serve. All the apostles and disciples, what did they do? They served. They served Jesus and his purposes. Then when he left, now it's you guys' turn. And not only that, go multiply. Go multiply yourselves. And you know what's funny is the disciples asked Jesus, they're like, who's the greatest of the kingdom? Who is it? What do you got to do? How do I get that seat? What do you do? What he said, you got to serve. Learn how to serve. And that's the night when he went down and washed their feet. He took off his robe, Jesus took off his mantle, got down on his knees and started cleaning his disciples' feet. And they're like, Jesus, what are you doing? We should be cleaning your feet. He's like, I'm showing you what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to serve. So right here, people say 6 years, 14 years that Elisha served Elijah. Through that whole process, Elisha was learning service. Service to Elijah, learning from Elijah, taking everything he can from him, because eventually it was going to be his turn. Now, let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings. We're going to be in 2 Kings 2, number 1. Okay? So here we're going to be reading about when Elisha is being prepared to take the mantle of Elijah. Okay? So one of the things we learned in the first one is he learned how to serve. Okay? And all the things that come with serving, leave it behind, come. Okay? So here, Elisha learns how to stay. Even when it gets difficult, even when it gets rough, learning how do I stay in it. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of things that are going to try to pull you out of it. The world is going to try to pull you out of your mind, your thoughts. The ones that the enemy puts in there are going to try to convince you to walk away from serving and walk away from following. Okay? And it's in those moments where you got to remind yourself, why do I stay? Why do I do this? Because I want to see what God is going to do. And if I walk away right now, I won't be able to see it. I'm going to miss it. So, it says, the time had come for the Lord to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind. Okay? Elijah didn't die. He actually got caught up in a whirlwind, right? And Elijah and Elisha were traveling, were traveling from Gilgal, and Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, the Lord is sending me on to Bethel. Okay? So the first thing here is, we all know Elijah's leaving. He's going to get caught up in a whirlwind. Everybody knew that already, right? Because he had also heard it from some of the disciples, even of probably Elijah himself and other prophets in the area. They were telling him, hey, your master's going to get caught up in a whirlwind. He's going to leave. And Elisha didn't like this. He did not like that. He's like, I don't want the person I'm serving to leave. This is going to be very painful. Okay? And so he tells they were traveling from Gilgal. The interesting thing here is Every place, we're going to be reading every place they traveled from and the significance of why. What happened in these areas? Okay? The first place was Gilgal. All right? And Gilgal was the first place that when Joshua and the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, where they camped out, right? It was the place where he circumcised all the boys that had not been circumcised yet and everything. And this is the place where God told them, the reproach of Egypt has been rolled away from you. Gilgal was a place of separation. Because the whole reason why the Abrahamic covenant and all those things, why he had them get circumcised and all those things was, it was a separation. You guys have been separated from me. So in this place, the place where God took them, they crossed the Jordan River, they got there, they camped out, and this is where God said, no more. Egypt will not follow you anymore. Your past will not follow you anymore. You are now being separated. And the thing was, Elisha, he was already separated. I mean, he said yes. He went from the process of learning and serving to now you're going to be separated for walking in it. Because it's different. It's different when you're learning, when you're serving, you're taking it all in. Okay, now it's time to preach. Okay, it's time to evangelize. Okay, it's time to prophesy. Okay, it's time to teach. Okay, it's time to pasture. Okay, it's time to show the love of the Lord. Because if you remember, Paul, Peter and all them, I believe, they were there, they were praying, they were ministering to the Lord, they were fasting, and it was there where God said, I want you to separate me. I believe it was Paul. I don't know if the second one was Barnabas or not. Don't quote me. But he said, separate them both for me now, because that's when Paul started traveling and starting the churches and all those things in all those different areas. Paul was already in the Lord. He was already in the Lord. But now he's saying, okay, now I'm separating you for this. This is what was happening to Elisha. This is the beginning of that. I am now separating you for this purpose. Now, he's also being challenged. Because this whole time he tells him, just stay here. Just stay here, Elisha. Don't follow me. He was challenging and testing him. Is this something you're willing to commit to? My mantle took a lot from me. And that's not a bad thing. Because people are like, oh, it took everything from me. The church took everything from me. They took everything. What was happening is Elijah wanted Elisha to understand that it's going to be more of him and less of you. You thought it was like that, but now it's going to be more. Now it's going to be even more of him and less of who you are. And he told him, just stay. Because sometimes we stay in the separation part. Okay, I've been separated. What now? What do I do now? How do I move on now? I know I've been separated, cool, but what now? And sometimes, again, we just stay there because we don't want to go to the next level. Because we know what's going to happen. We know it's going to be more of the Lord now and less of me. It's going to be more dependence on him and less of me. Now, second place. Stay here, the Lord is sending me on to Bethel. And Elisha replied, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. Then the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said, do you know what the Lord will take your master away from you today? He said, yes, I know. Be quiet. Now, what happened in Bethel? As you remember, this was the place where Jacob was, where he saw the ladder and he saw the glory of the angels coming up and down the ladder and the glory of God just going up and down the ladder. It was a place where the presence of God was so strong that was there, that Jacob called it Bethel, which means house of God. That's what he called it. And now, in that place where in Bethel, where the presence of God is, where Jacob saw this, right? This was a place now where Elisha, all day, every day, you have to seek the presence of God. So now we go from being separated, now it's seek my presence. Seek the presence of God. This comes with the separation. This comes with the calling. You've been separated. Okay, now are you going to seek me out? Because God's presence is everywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays. But are you continuing to seek him? Because sometimes we get comfortable and we don't look for him. Lord, just come to me, come to me, come to me, come to me. Let your presence just come to me, come to me. I don't want to look for it. Just let it come. I don't want to. That means I got to pray and I got to worship. I don't want to do that. I just want it to come to me. That takes work, Lord. I ain't trying to do all that. I got other things to do. I got bills to pay. I got to work. I got a lot. All right? Continuously seeking the presence of God. And as we know, right, it was the sons of Jacob that would become what? The tribes of Israel. Now, the next place. Elijah said to him, Elijah, stay here. The Lord's sending me to Jericho. But Elijah said, as the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they went to Jericho. We all know what happened in Jericho. It was the first city that was taken over when they crossed the Jordan. Okay? And it was here where the Israelites learned, we're in the God's army now. It was here where Elisha would see going through Jericho is one of those things of showing him that you will be putting pressure on the enemy. You will be fighting a spiritual battle. Why? Because it was here when Joshua was approaching Jericho, he approached a man with a sword drawn out. And Joshua said, whose side are you on? Are you on their side? Are you on our side? And this man, which was Jesus, by the way, said, I'm on neither side. I come as the commander of God's army. Pretty much saying, I've come to take over this war. Joshua, I'm not on anyone's side. You're on my side. And that's the thing where sometimes we have the mentality God's on my side and I'm going in here and he's coming with me. And God's like, whoa, 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 you got it twisted. You're on my side. You go where I go. You don't go wherever you want and just believe yeah, okay, I'll go with you. No, I didn't send you there. There's certain battles that we fight and God's like, I didn't send you to fight that battle. The Lord fights your battles. Especially the spiritual battles. The Lord fights those. What you got to do? You got to pray. That's your weapon. Literally, prayer, I want you to think about it. It is literally a sword. It is a weapon. When you pray, you are literally putting weapons. You're on offensive against the enemy. You're not on defense. You're on offense at that point when you're praying. It is a literal weapon. That'll change your mentality now when you pray. You're sending arrows when you pray. Okay? You're putting bullets down range when you pray. Okay? That's what you're doing. So it was here that Elisha would understand, okay, I'm in the Lord's army now. I am going to be battling spiritually now. Now, this is the last one, okay? Then the sons of the prophets who were in Jericho came up to Elisha and said, do you know what the Lord will take your master away to today? He said, yes, I know, be quiet. And Elijah said to him, stay here, the Lord is sending me to the Jordan. But Elijah said, as the Lord lives and as yourself live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. And it was there in the Jordan River. I shall keep reading. 50 men from the sons of prophets came and stood facing them from a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, struck the waters, which parted to the right and left. Then the two of them crossed over on dry ground. After they had crossed over, Elijah said to Elisha, tell me, what can do for you before I am taken from you? Or what can I do for you before I am taken from you? They have crossed over now. He followed them into the Jordan. And what had happened with the Jordan? That was where, again, Joshua and disciples, or in the Israelites, crossed the Jordan River. They were going into something new where now they're actually going to be recognized as the nation of Israel, where they weren't before. So now they're crossing over, they're going over and entering into something new, into a new identity now, into a new calling now. As Elisha crossed this river with Elijah, he was now entering into something new. He was passing over now. And what else happened in the Jordan River? That's where Jesus was baptized. That's where Jesus was anointed when he got out of the water. New life came. So here when Elijah is crossing the river of Jordan, he's entering now into a new life. Not that he didn't have one with God, but now, hey, things are going to drastically change here. Things are going to change in your life. There is a new thing coming. But Elisha was determined to stay. Even though Elijah kept telling him, stay here, stay here, stay here. He's like, I'm not staying. I want to see what God is going to do. Come on. Now, it says, so Elijah answered, please let me inherit 2 shares of your spirit. Elijah replied, you have asked for something difficult. If you see me being taken from you, you will have it. If not, you won't. What Elisha was asking for here is, in this time period, what they would do is they would ask for the firstborn of a son, of the father. When the father is about to die or anything like that, usually the firstborn would get the double inheritance. Okay? This is what Elisha was asking for. I want a double inheritance of what you got. I want a double inheritance. I want a double portion of what the Lord has put in you. I want that. He said, you're asking for something difficult. I can't make that decision for you. That's something the Lord has to do. And as they continued walking and talking, a chariot of fire with horses of fire suddenly appeared and separated the two of them. Then Elijah went up into heaven in the whirlwind, and as Elijah watched, he kept crying out, my father, the chariots and the horsemen of Israel. He's warning him like, hey, they're coming, they're coming. Then he never saw Elijah again. He took hold of his own clothes and tore them into pieces. He was very sad. He was very upset. This is not something he wanted. And he knew he was going to see this, knowing that it might be hurtful to see him go, but I have to stay. I have to stay. It might hurt. I know what's coming, but I have to stay because I need to receive my double portion. And if I don't stay, I won't receive it. If I don't stay to see what God is going to do, I'm not going to receive the blessing. Now, Elijah picked up the mantle that had fallen off of Elijah and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Then he took the mantle Elijah had dropped and struck the waters. Where is the Lord God of Elijah? He asked. He struck the waters himself, and they parted to the right and the left, and Elisha crossed over. It was here where now Elisha is learning to walk in the calling, to walk under the anointing, to walk with the mantle, to walk with the ministry that he has now been handed. And so when he did that, when he split the Jordan River and he crossed over it again, he's not coming back as the same Elijah that went there. Now he's coming back as the prophet Elisha. He didn't have this title before. But now he's coming back something new. Now he's coming back, I'm walking under this. I am taking this on. Serve, stay, walking in it. And all of this came from the influence of Elijah. This is to show how powerful influence can be. So now you need to ask yourself, what kind of influence am I to other people? What kind am I? Do I seek out negative influences? Do I pursue those things? Or do I pursue the positive ones? Do I learn from the people that God has put in my life to help me through this? To bring me through this? You weren't meant to do this alone. At all whatsoever. Isolation is the worst thing ever. You are not an island. Don't make yourself an island. God has put people in your life to influence you in certain ways. And you have to be willing to lean into that. You have to be willing to lean into that. Amen? Let's stand up. Let's stand up and pray.